Hey, Rachel.
Hi there.
How's it going? Hey, Hannah.
Hi.
Hey, it's great to see you too. And I guess we'll just get started. I'm thrilled to have you here. It looks like we've got 36 and up viewers right now and climbing on the YouTube, which is fantastic. And it's really my job tonight to just say a few words and get out of the way. I'm Peter Campion. I'm the editor of Great River Review, and I teach poetry at the University of Minnesota. And it's just a great honor to host this reading, which was originally going to be in person, but was delayed because of a blizzard in February. We had another blizzard in April, but beautiful 80-degree weather today here in the Twin Cities. And the literary scene is definitely sizzling as well. And Great River Review's print edition, which both Hannah and Rachel are in, is about to come out. Those of you who are subscribers will see it soon. We're just setting actually there were a few missing pieces that this year's Great River Review class was a wonderful group of student editors, writers who are editors have helped to fill in, and GQ Lee, our incredible assistant editor, as well as Tariq Dobbs, our previous incredible assistant editor, have done lots of work on issue 69, which both of these incredible I'm using the word incredible a lot, but it's really valid here. It's credible. Both of these authors are in, and in fact have got us ahead of schedule for issue 70. So please check out the magazine online. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe online on our site, and also feel free to be in touch. If you have questions about the magazine, you can email me, pcampion@umn.edu, and I'd love to loop you in. We have lots of exciting things happening in the future with this magazine, including a musical collaboration that's going to be worked out this summer that I'm really excited about. So this event, though, represents what I think this magazine does at its best, which is to give space to authors who are really at the top of their game. And Rachel and Hannah both fulfill those criteria. Rachel Hansen explores intersections of nature, gender, violence, and class in her work, and often writes from an eco-feminist perspective. Her essays can be found in Creative Nonfiction, the Iowa Review, Ninth Letter, North American Review, Best of the Net, American Literary Review. These are some of the best magazines going right now. Her poetry was selected for Best New Poets and has been published in the Minnesota Review, Juke, New Madrid, and elsewhere. Awesome to be publishing a poet's prose. Excerpts from her novel in progress appear in Joyland magazine, and she's the recipient of the very prestigious Olive B. O'Connor Fellowship in Nonfiction at Colgate University. Rachel holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of Utah and a PhD in literature and creative writing from the University of Missouri. She's an assistant professor of English at the University of North Carolina, Asheville. Beautiful Asheville. I hope it's as nice there as it has been here. And we were commenting earlier, along with Morgan Graham, who has done fantastic work on this series and with the Walter Nathan Literary Initiative, who's from Utah, that this is a reading, a prize podium, nonetheless, dominated by the American West. Hannah Deerdorf is originally from Spokane, Washington, and is a recent graduate of the creative writing program at the University of Virginia, where she taught poetry and writing. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Cut Bank, Arkansas International, About Place, and Great River Review. And her fantastic poem, The History of Rimming, was chosen by Julian Randall, who's a wonderful poet everyone should check out of Chicago, to be this year's Pink Prize winner. Rachel's incredible and both weighty and yet kind of spontaneously lyrical essay weighted was chosen by our editorial board to be the winner of this year's Walter Nathan Literary Initiative Essay Award. So it's my pleasure to give way first to Hannah and then to Rachel. Each is going to read for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have a short Q&A session, a short back and forth. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. More and more people signing on. It's fantastic. Hannah, it's all you.
Thank you, Peter, for that lovely introduction. Thank you to Morgan for all of the organizing and behind the scenes work to make this happen despite weather and, those natural forces swirling up in the sky, making our first iteration of this event a little bit difficult to happen. I'm going to start off with a extended sonnet, and this is from my manuscript, my first manuscript I completed at my master's program at the University of Virginia. So I'll be reading from some of that tonight and then from some new stuff as well that I've been working on. So this is called Extended Sonnet with Turkey Vultures. Inside the apartment complex, I practice belief in death, the way I once believed in God. The fall from the balcony, the red bolt through the body, then the holy emptiness, the self erased, cleaned. 6 hawks in the distance, spiraling. Turkey vultures, maybe. Too far to see. The morning is a mirror in which I do not recognize myself. Carnivorous, cadaverous, hidden litanies of death trailing everything I name. I've seen the casualties of desire, scraps of fur on October roads, bones and trash bleaching in the weeds. Chick-fil-A cup, rusted hubcap, plastic sheets bag. How to speak the word love in a landfill. How to praise the body that continues to eat. The AC hums, massaging the air, burying heat away from me. At the bus stop, I tell myself I'm learning to touch the shape of my life, like the incised trunk of the beach, where a scarlet tanager sings, Sharit, Sharit. So I wrote a lot of sonnets for my manuscript, and they kind of become slightly unruly at the end. But this is a double sonnet, and yeah, I don't really actually know how to introduce this one because it speaks to a time in my life that I find still very difficult to talk about. So I'll let the poem speak for itself. It's called A Classical Christian Academy. And there's an epigraph from Isaiah 6:13. They shall be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. The school steals the name of a tree not found this close to Idaho. Quercus gariana only grows west of the Cascades, prefers the disturbed soil of a post-fire landscape. No fire burns here in the off-white halls where teachers measure inches between plaid skirts and knees. We read Huckleberry Finn and never learn the word racism, the day's question in cursive on the board. How does Huck exemplify Christ? Praise the Lord, whose dominion extends over algebra, art, and history. Before manifest destiny, indigenous tribes ignited grasslands to nurture oaks, bracken firs, and chocolate lilies. Each morning, I cry behind a bathroom stall, return down the clean corridor, black heels clicking on the stone floor. The door opens and closes. I take my seat. The class, apologetics. Let us evaluate our every experience in light of God's truth. Let us critique a video of a man who loves men as he stands at a pulpit, tears salting his teeth. Since the 1850s, over 90% of white oak woodlands have been erased, habitats replaced with cul-de-sacs and farms of Christmas trees. To Christ, I pray the words, submission and humility. I watch my body more than they watch me. The absence of fire never means eternal life. Douglas firs invade, shut out the sun, oak limbs dying in the shade where we eat scripture, our throats tight behind our teeth. This is one of the poems I first wrote now almost like 4 years ago when I moved to Virginia. And I was coming off of like being home in Spokane, Washington for the summer and being in the thick of fire season in the West. And I write a lot about fire in my manuscript as well. But this is also a double sonnet in my collection. It's called Wedding in America. And just like a warning, it does speak about gun violence. I am dancing near the bank of the Little Spokane, dancing with my brothers and sisters, the sky darkening as we dance. Gold bursts from the bride and groom, green shoots through our bodies. We sing, tonight's gonna be a good night, then shout, shut up and dance with me. Ties, jackets, shoes tossed, hips pop, arms sway, weight thudding against cement as we jump, stomp, spin. Someone starts a kick line and we hold each other, dancing. It is the electric breath of bodies at home in their bodies that remains when the couple runs through our tunnel of arms and we all drive away. At home, I check my phone. Massacre in El Paso. Out the window, the first fire of the season, the night laden with carbon and water. Mother prays for a shift in wind. Sweat cools to salt on skin. 20 killed. We were dancing. In the morning, windows closed against smoke. Another alert. 9 dead in Ohio. Suspect sister among victims. Suspect shot down by Dayton police. I am dancing with my brothers and sisters. Near a dark shaft of river, we are dancing. This next poem is called Poem in Which I Erase God's Name from the New Testament. And this poem actually arrived because I wrote a series of poems where I took some Bible verses and literally I did erasures of certain texts from the New Testament. And then I realized the poems weren't actually doing as much as a poem, as much as they're doing things for me as a person. And that the poem itself they need to write was about the process and not about the text. Poem in which I erase God's name from the New Testament. Somewhere along the way, I remember the punishment. Somewhere along the way, every dream becomes a simulation where someone won't let me leave until I dip a knife in Jesus's blood and kill the appropriate woman. Somewhere along the way, I copy and paste Bible verses onto a shimmering white screen, then delete, delete, delete. Somewhere along the way, I begin to call these poems. Somewhere along the way, the shapes of old new systems moving toward me, fast, like buildings along a highway, where I or someone like me is driving from the passenger seat with one hand. Somewhere along the way, there's often a dive bar or a porch where I rewrite the night's metaphysics with a red stub of a cigarette I don't know how to smoke. Somewhere along the way, I run out of change, out of language, and there is a toll, as there always is, at the bottom or top of the mountain. Somewhere along the way, I let a man enter me, on a porch, by a river, in a car, on a picnic table, under a blur of particular stars, while particles of wildfire smoke burn my nose, bleed it. Somewhere along the way is always my mother. Somewhere along the way, an empty Snapple outside a gas station becomes synonymous with water, with want. Somewhere along the way, I dredge my body for the pattern of stresses in each book, chapter, verse. Somewhere along the way, I do or do not pull the bag of Bibles from the back of my closet and drive across the country to the river of the city where I was born, and I am tearing each thin, opaque page into fragments the size of the foam spitting over the falls. Along the way, I stop needing the gesture, the erasure, the salvaging. I tell myself absence is also an epistemology. I tell myself ethics isn't only a god and his ghosts. Somewhere, a man with a tattoo of a flaming angel on his bicep is stepping out of a Lana Del Rey song and telling me he's taking my name from the book of life. Somewhere along the way, I let him. So this next poem is A Brief Lesson in Rimming, and this is the poem that was chosen for the prize, which is a great honor because I never thought I'd be able to read this poem in front of people because it's a little weird. So I'm going to actually share my screen with you all. Hopefully this works so that you'll be able to see the shape of the poem. Okay. Cool. So this is called A Brief Lesson in Rimming, and you probably aren't able to read the words because they're kind of small on the screen, but hopefully you can see the kind of shape and movement as I'm reading it to you all. A Brief Lesson in Rimming. And so it came to pass, purity, a ring on my 15th birthday, a paddock, a pen, a loop lapping at the moon-mouthed crater where no milk rose, only roses and peonies easily bruised, deflowered. For this reason, a man must guard the tower. Knees closed to hold the whole of my name, my gender the husk of a seed spit out by God. Save come for the second coming, for the covenant where you're given away. Let's role play. A man equals the Messiah. A woman equals 10 virgins waiting at the door to their own clits. Wives submit. Oh, the uneaten pomegranates, the twin fawns feeding in the lilies above my ribs, the locked garden where lust monopolizes language. I kick underwear off my feet. I crucified the flesh, but the flesh still breathes, and teach what's holy. How to circle a city 7 times and sing the walls down to stone. Oh, the little deaths hissing in this weaker vessel. The first time I come, he feels my body close like a silo of sun-split grain, swallowing a face, pulling him in ripples, in waves. Okay, I have no idea where we at time-wise, but I have some more poems for you all, so I hope that's okay. This next poem is the last of my poems from my book I will read to you all. This poem is called A Short Catechism, and it kind of repurposes some questions from the Westminster Catechism, which if you're not familiar with is kind of a a standard of doctrine for like a lot of Protestant denominations, to put it simply. And it asks questions about God and like how we're supposed to obey God and what is the nature of God, etc. So I just did a fun little spin on that. A short catechism. What is the chief end of hands? To glorify hips and to enjoy their surrender. What rule hath hips given to direct us how we may glorify and enjoy them? Have you asked? Have you listened? What are hips? Hips are two bones, largely composed of star-shaped cells, joined together with cartilage at the pubic symphysis, which comes from the Greek preposition together and the root to be, grow, exist. Are there more hips than one? The light of the body is a candle with two wicks. How many persons are there in the hips? As many bees are in a hive, as many tongues are in a bear eating eggs and honey from the hive. As many times the bear is stung by the bees, their hive torn open by the bear's blunt teeth. How doth hips execute their decrees? How does the moon push and pull the sea? How does a planet orbit into an eclipse? How did hips create hands? The hand guides the hand into the hips, like this. Okay. This next poem is something newer, something a little different. It's a kind of play on lines composed above Tintern Abbey by Wordsworth. So it's my own take on a kind of 21st century existential pastoral. So should be fun. Lines composed approximately 30 feet above Long Beach. On the bluff, copy-paste romantic, as in language, as in narrative, as in the love song of empire, a picture to click and send to you. California brittle brush grounding the seascape in shadow and distance, dark green and gold, almost the shape of feeling. A feeling where I'm always outside the frame, leaning on the slick metal railing, my phone's lens directed and tapped at flowers and leaves until the app descends into genus, species. Desert wishbone, silver beachweed, sea fig, coastal golden brush, Eve's needle cactus. Yes, this familiar prick of ritual, of devotion, so easy to breathe, pastoral, south of LA's smog, southeast of the marina's space-age cranes, where the Queen Mary's anchored and available for $140 a night to role play as the Duke and Duchess of Windsor on their Atlantic crossing, where lovers rent swan paddle boats and rub elbows with fairy tale, build desire lines across the sand, these parallel concrete paths snaking along the coastline as if proof of Lana Del Rey's auto-tuned philosophy. The world was built for two. Her knight riding in all Harley and muscle-tee, calling her bad and baby. The plosives of some men whisper in bed. It doesn't have to mean anything, one of us said after we had sex, opening a distance as wide as the water between here and the horizon. This water, where cargo and cruise ships loiter, here where the astronaut islands hide the extraction of oil with waterfalls and palms. And who was it you said wrote about language as our original wound? Romance, originally a reference to the Latinate languages, the long wake of invasion, occupation, war sewn into the sand as plastic shards at the edge of water, where tomorrow I'll drag a heavy dark shape from the shallows, dirty white feathers sticking out of the blue cloth someone knotted around the body, where today I only notice the lack of waves here within the breakwater, built for the US Navy after World War II. The waves only small revolutions, a soft turbulence before their dissolution outside the lyric. You are turning me over again in your bed, woman and woman, your fingers hooked in and in where I'm without recourse or precedent. My fingers trawling your skin against the myths and their systems for some sweet, discarded noun. Okay, I'm gonna end with a slightly humorous. Oh, actually, I don't know. I might have two more. I'm gonna read this one next. It's a little bit more humorous than the ones prior, so hopefully it gives us all a break. I need some water. 1 second. I did time this reading at one point, but that was like 2 months ago in February, and I can't really say if I'm sticking to that or not. So this is called, well, it has a leading title, so I'll just go right in. Up from a dream where I'd grown my hair long enough to braid it and be recognizable to the men who used to mentor me. One of them now dead, but not in the dream, where I'd lost whatever qualities they used to praise me for. My skills passable, but not redeeming, something decayed in my body or mind. Up and drinking tea from the natural food store I frequent because twice a beautiful woman there told me how well my short hair fits my face, and because I preferred the anxiety of an empty checking account to the anxiety of unlimited choice. By which I mean, I know capitalism will fuck me up either way, but let me maintain my personal gratifications, these reusable, sustainable illusions, raised cage-free and still stinking of dirt and avian detritus. Last night, I was flirting with no particular purpose at a party where my friend said all we talk about is love and money. I said writing about capitalism sells, but only literarily, i.e., we'd love to publish XYZ for $20 or the honor of appearing in our magazine. And of course, I say yes. I'm always secretly trying to attack or please someone with power, which isn't about sex necessarily, except when it is. I'm writing this on 100% post-consumer waste recycled paper with a Pilot G2 pen filled with a new ink cartridge I bought off Amazon. I'm telling you this, dear reader, because I want you to mock me, my self-righteousness, my inconsistencies. Okay, maybe I'm a little too into being demeaned. Okay, it's hard for me to trust someone unless they criticize me. This makes me a very desirable employee. I keep the secret of my power in my wallet with my used gum wrappers, the way I haven't told my parents I'm gay, the way I don't need men's instruction, but still pretend to, so they will be at ease. As if obedience is the only way I can be worthy. Okay, I know we're all surviving on outdated strategies, but my teeth still gnaw at stale bread. You know what they say about food waste in this country. A joke I make to male customers when they lick their plates clean. Okay, I haven't eaten yet today. Okay, I meant this to be less revealing. I bought a black lace bralette for $60 at Anthropology to wear to a gay dance party. I've never worn this little fabric in public. I've never been so terrified that I might actually recognize myself while fashioning the conditions for the possibility of love. Okay. This is gonna be my last one tonight. Um, it is again about gun violence, just so you're all aware. It's something that's, I'm sure, been on all of our thoughts now and for the past what feels like forever. But there is a particular instance, there have been actually multiple particular instances in Charlottesville this past year. So it's been very much in my periphery and in my thoughts as I'm writing. So this is called Sistina, beginning with acid reflux and ending with the sky. Wednesday, a CVS. You watch me watch each shot enter the meat of my arm, the flea-sized bead of red. You're wearing the shirt with pheasants. Out through the aisles of Tums and Captain Crunch. An afternoon eclipse. Our bodies, my bed, the light across your neck. A mark I do not make. I'm late. I forget the words and where to write them. How to arrange my senses apart, elsewhere from you. I run. I count 6 black vultures, not shot, but rotting near the trail. The forest sticky, marked, white stains on the leaves. Each week I loop in a red dream. The body is removed, smell of bones and soap eclipsing the creek. Never do I wish to buy us an aisle, better water, only an existence where I'll never harm you. I'm foolish, it's true. The wares I want, no website lists. Another lunar eclipse you wake me for, a future where the word shooting becomes obsolete. A day my mother can read my little lesbian heart in this poem and not mark my name with grief. When the university marks the street where the names of the time, I see the aisle of the bus, the parking garage my friends and I'd climb, read the pink and orange descent. During lockdown, somewhere between our students' poems and their deaths, before shooter was a text on your phone while we kissed, eclipse of time across town. How to sense around ellipses or through. The prepositions won't keep to their marked functions, won't mean singularly. A week later, a shooting at a gay club you almost visited, one in the aisles of a Walmart not 3 hours away. I wear proximity poorly. No one taught me how to read the line between my loss and another's, to write a red limit to grief. Your nearness casts me wide, elliptic, or orbit where every terror and joy relives. Everywhere the impossibility of this, the stretch marks silvering your breasts, my burning throat, the bruises I'll press when you ask, and you do. What trajectory shot us separately into our want? Unreadable, unmarked. Were you shopping in the aisles when it eclipsed you? I was somewhere in this country where my mother once handed me a shotgun, and I aimed at the edge of all that blue. Thank you.
Okay, so I think I just start then. I think, Peter, you're here.
Yes, it's all
Okay.
you. So what a great reading, Hannah. Thank you so much. And the new poems sound fantastic. Handing it over to you, Rachel.
Okay, great. Thank you, Hannah, for your beautiful reading. And please stay with me on the screen, the black screen, and just me. It's like it brings back too many COVID things, so please don't leave me. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Morgan, for all the work that you've put into this event and the work that you do in Great River Magazine. Thank you for publishing me. I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, we made it. I mean, virtual is still a good option for these things. So I'm really glad we're still able to gather, even if we're not in person. I'm going to read something new. I try to read something new usually to start off and kind of see how it goes. And then I'm going to read an excerpt from Weighted, which is published, the piece that's in the Great River Review coming out soon. And this piece is called If Not Love. My dog walks over uneven ground, dark mud and massive roots, Appalachian woods with ease. The sunlight would be too harsh on her pink skin beneath fine white fur, were it not for the thickness of North Carolina trees and thickets. I watch her and wonder what a past is to a dog. I know just bits of hers. There was a story in the way her bones had shown through her skin, the way her tail laid low, the way she shook in fear. I had not wanted to love her, had resented my partner for insisting we meet the man who fostered her, who brought her to us on a chain. I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me judge him immediately. It wasn't love that made me relent to taking her in. It was the nervousness around the men, the fear of them, and the way she calmed when I led her away, put some distance between them and us. Blue trembled for days, shit the bed, tried to run away, lunging out of the door to escape. I ran after her without the forethought to bring a leash. She lurched and so did I. We ran several streets beyond my own. Eventually, Blue gave up. Not because she was tired or cold or could not outrun me, but I think because she didn't know where to go. She fell to the ground and rolled over, her legs stretched taut, bracing somewhere between submission and nervousness. I picked her up and carried her home, 33 pounds of pit bull mutt, up from the 28 she had been, still 10 pounds shy of where she ought to be. My sister had been small too small, bad nutrition, bad everything. She used to wrap her tiny fingers into a fist around my pinky. I used to keep her in my bed, though she ought to have been in a crib. I was scared wandering hands might find her baby body the way they had found mine. And still, there were times I would pack a bag intending to leave her, desperate for an escape. I'd open the window and slide the bag onto the roof before slipping through it myself, feeling the pull of the night, looking down at the ground, preparing for the jump. I'd whisper into the darkness a mantra, don't look, don't look, don't look. Even as I found myself backing away from the roof's edge, slipping back through the window, the blue-stained carpet at my feet, feeling like an immediate gripping weight. Don't look, don't look. Of course, I did look. Kneeling next to the bed, I'd find myself brushing the brown curls from my sister's face, small with the furrowed brow. It was as if she knew, even as she slept, that I was trying to leave her. Babies do know things, and babies need everything. Babies need so fucking much, and my sister was no different. On the nights I almost escaped, it seemed her brow was more stern, though I'm sure I imagined it. My own punishment for wanting to leave behind the child who counted on me, who saved her trust and laughter for my little brothers and myself. Her toddler fist sought aim. Oh, sorry about that. Back up a little bit. We all loved her so, admired her so, the way she was determined to join in the boys' roughhousing. Her toddler fist sought aim as our brothers wrestled about her. Her punches would land and my brothers would stop fast and laugh as our giggling sister held up her fist, daring any of the boys to come near. That was decades past, back when I was 16. I shake off the memories because I learned long ago the dangers of sitting too long in the past. And yet it still comes back. Sometimes flashes, sometimes whole memories and events, some good, most bad. I look at my blue dog and wonder about her old life. I think it's best for her to have forgotten. I hope she has forgotten, though I know memories have a way of living in the body, no matter how hard we try to banish them. I had been a mother to children I did not bear in my past life. Like Blue, I'd been chased when I ran out the door, my hands bloodied from fighting back. I did not submit, had never been good at giving up. Any submission I'd ever made was just me buying time until I could escape. When I ran, the hands that grabbed my body had not been gentle. I suspect Blue knows something of those kind of hands. Blue is a dog, of course. So while our way of remembering and forgetting is different, there is enough sense in both of us to know who is safe and who is not. Still, when Blue picked me as her person, I was confused. I sometimes declare to her dumb dog face that no one has ever loved me so much, and I'm not sure what to do with it all. Who is love for? Who deserves it? Who gets to have and keep it? I eventually did leave my sister behind, left my little brothers behind, and that does something to a person, or I guess I should say it did something to me. Kate Chopin's Edna said that she would give up her life for her children, but she would not give up herself. Ibsen's Nora left her children behind pretty much for the same reason. Of course, they are fiction and I am real. Juna Barnes left her family behind too, unwilling to sacrifice herself further. She is less sympathetic, of course, mostly because her way of othering and because, well, she too was real. What actual real human woman leaves children? Fathers, sure. It's rare of mothers. Barnes wasn't a mother though, but a sister. I was the kind of sister that could not take the weight of my siblings on my back and have never, not once, forgiven myself for it. The sun has lowered and the trail is getting dark and a man stands in its middle. Though he's some distance away, he has an imposing stance, taking up too much space. But what else is new? Blue is off leash a few feet ahead. She stops hard, focused and still. I walk on and call her along. Instead of moving forward, she steps back, never taking her eyes off the man. My stomach turns as I watch her body stiffen by the second, her hair rising at the neck. I know to listen. We move quickly off the trail and into the brush, then deeper into the woods. We walk quicker, but soft. But Blue never once leaves my side. We wait to drop back down on the trail until we are sure the man has moved on and far. Once our feet are back on maintained ground, we run all the way to the road. It occurs to me that Blue could have run much faster, taken off for safety, had I not been with her. And I might have tried to make myself bigger, put her on the leash and forced her to walk by this man who clearly terrified her, but I didn't. And what is that, if not love? Okay, so that was my something new, actually newest thing. And I don't know where it belongs in a collection or something. I just wrote it, so I don't know. I don't know what it's going to happen to it. I mean, I know what's going to happen to it in the short term, but long term, I'm not sure. Now I'm going to read a little bit from the essay Weighted, the one that's coming out in Great River Review. And I will say it is, it's a pretty long essay. And so one of the things that I really love about sort of working non-linearly and I love collage style work and going back and forth between present and past. It's a lot of fun and it reflects, I think, this isn't anything new. It reflects how we think and how our memory works. And so I'm a big fan of it, except for when it comes time to pick an excerpt to read because it gets it's a little tough not to have all the through lines running about. So what I did for this today is just picked what I could to make the most cohesive for the sake of this reading. And let's see. Oh, I should say that I started writing this during the pandemic, during the shutdown. And so that might explain some of the references. And what else did I want to tell y'all? Oh, and this was also right before, so this is before the Supreme Court made their decision on Roe v. Wade, or the Dobbs decision, I guess. And Texas had already been up to what they'd been up to, and the Supreme Court shortly followed. So I'll probably need to update that at some point to reflect what happened shortly after that. But right now, I wrote it during this whole time. So, all right, weighted. And I should say I'm kind of starting towards the middle, I don't know, somewhere in there. All right. It was cold, the desert cold of early spring. I reached past the front seats and turned the key in the ignition, set the heat on full blast, nestled back under my sleeping bag. I waited until it was nearly too hot and then squirmed out of my covers, slipped into my flip-flops, opened the door and hastened to the trees just off the side of the road for the bathroom. As I was unfastening my pants, my fingertips going cold fast, I noticed a dead deer just to my right, and I screamed. She'd taken me by surprise. Her pelt looked as though it had melted over her broken bones. I ran back to my car, hopped in the driver's seat, and drove towards town. I'd driven to Boulder, Utah from Salt Lake City to recertify my wilderness first responder, a requirement of the summer job I had as a river guide in the Grand Canyon. The timing of the course was bad. The timing for all things has always been too tight in my life. It's my own doing. If I move fast enough, let myself be consumed in labor, then the past won't be able to catch up and make me recall my Tennessee girlhood stuck in one drafty house or another, the bones of them aching from the wet air, my body feeling heavy with the density of it all. Lately, though, I've grown tired, and I find it difficult to jump from one thing to another. Lately, my memory isn't letting me move forward, but pulls me backwards. I wake up from nightmares that I live in the South, and then I remember pushing through all the confusion of sleep that I do live in the South. The first time I had that nightmare, I was unnerved, took a shower to shake it off, then drove myself to work early. I saw the hills, the orange sunrise light peeking over the tips of the Blue Ridge just after I drove over the French Broad River. I took in a deep breath. It is beautiful, this place. And then I'm right back sitting in one of the many yards of my childhood. I'm hiding behind an oak tree, leaning heavy and breathing deep, looking at the hills to know something good. And with that memory, I burst into tears while driving down I-26, no longer telling myself I'm okay, instead asking aloud to no one, how will I get out of here? How will I get out of here? On that first night in Boulder, Utah, I slept in my tent near the community center, but there was something about the place that freaked me out. I woke up early and packed my bag. I drove to the outskirts of town where I could get a cell signal and called my friend Danielle. For no reason other than to remind myself I wasn't as isolated as I felt. I tell her about the vibe of the place, how I hadn't expected to feel so weird here. I've always loved Southern Utah. Something feels bad. Come home, she says. Just keep driving out of that town and come home. I wasn't even 10 years into my river career when I called Danielle that day on the side of the road outside of Boulder, Utah. I wasn't ready to let it all go. Scared not to have work, scared to let go of a place I loved, even though it came with so much bad. I wish I hadn't been so scared. I wish I had driven away and let the woofer go, let the guiding go, but I didn't. I drove back to town to the community center, ready to spend the next 3 days learning wilderness medicine that was highly unlikely I'd ever put into practice in real life. It was an odd group of folks taking the class. I was the only woman student there, and I felt nervous about it. They were not the group of river runners and guides I'd been expecting. Mostly they were folks who seemed like they just wanted something to do. One man brought his daughter to the class. She looked to be about 13, but dressed as if she were a pioneer, minus shoes. Her bare feet bothered me. It was too cold. Her father wore hiking boots and was bundled in thick flannels. She wore a light cotton jacket over her dress and clung to a cloth doll. She stuck near her father and barely spoke, smiled at the older woman who was cooking for the class. I assumed, given the area, that her father was fundamentalist. The instructor of the class, who seemed to be a kind man, a safe man, was friendly to the child and made sure she knew there was enough breakfast to go around. I didn't have to ask the girl what the instructor did. Is school on spring break? I knew it wasn't. Most likely her schooling would never be traditional, would never amount to much beyond keeping house and tending babies. Her role was to serve the men around her. As I glanced at the girl shyly spooning oatmeal into her mouth, it occurred to me that she might be rebelling against all the bullshit. Maybe she was causing trouble at home, and that's why her father had brought her along. It made me sad. Keeping women uneducated is just another way of setting them up for oppression. That I also knew without asking. My parents had their own version of religious fundamentalism, and I'd also been kept from school and was told domesticity and childbearing was why God had made me. There was no point in educating me because my purpose in life didn't call for it. I could have talked to the girl, though I imagine her father would not have approved, but I didn't want to. It was too much, too close to reality I'd left behind in Tennessee nearly a decade ago. I didn't want to know another girl whose life was likely to be lived in oppression. I hadn't been able to save my own sister, and this girl, well, there was nothing I could do. I left breakfast early, went out to my car, opened up my laptop, my thesis was coming due, and we had another 20 minutes before the class started. I looked at the lines I needed to edit. The sun was coming down hot, that beautiful desert sun. I closed the computer and leaned back to feel the heat on my face, whispering to myself again and again, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. We can live anywhere and we can die anywhere, but different places speak to different people. I think of what that means for my history, my memory, and my desire to be as far from this southern region as possible. This is not my place, but it is the only place for others. And I think about what it means for the women I have known, or at least known of, women connected to my life or my community in one capacity or another. Some of the women I find myself thinking about are those who have crossed my path peripherally, like the girl back in Boulder, Utah. My thoughts have been preoccupied with these women lately. Maybe it's all the bullshit in Texas, the Republicans waging their never-ending battle against women and what they do with their bodies. How many women will be forced to bear children they never wanted? How many young girls, still children, will be forced to give birth because this country is full of men who are determined to write laws that break their bodies? Men and all their breaking, all their controlling, all their violence. Fathers, brothers, priests, and preachers, and two, the righteous woman sitting with righteous men on the highest court in the land. It does not bode well for most of us. That special kind of morality that allows one person to decide that their belief about what another person does or does not do with their body is more important than the person making up that body. Well, that shit is everywhere. It's in Texas, it's in the state of my birth where I first learned of violence, in Tennessee, where I grew up, and in Utah, the state that gave me home. And still, I've come to believe that place is everything. If I was pushed to own some kind of a belief, I'd say I believed in rivers and in dirt and in the desert. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end there. I want to make sure to not keep us too long. So I think that's a fine ending place. And if y'all want to read the whole thing, I guess you know where to find it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. What a reading. Two amazing readings. And we have just like 5 more minutes, but I'd just like to ask you both. I mean, it's both readings in different ways, but in a similar way, struck me with their range, that both of you are able to tonal range and verbal range and range of experience, that both of you are able to write about everything from early religious experience to sexual experience to political life to trying to make sense of one's past and everything that goes along with that linguistically, that you're able to inhabit these idioms in which you're, doing literary criticism or talking about religious history, and at the same time, and maybe on the same line or in the same sentence, talking quite immediately in the present about contemporary experience. And I'm just wondering, like, how, as a just somebody who's been listening and envying you, basically, like, how do you do that? I mean, both of you do that.
Hannah, do you want to take this one, or should I? I guess we both could answer that. I could make an attempt to answer. How does that sound?
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll let you go first and I'll add some things.
Well, I don't know. Honestly, I think it's hard to live in this contemporary moment. It's hard to be a writer. We're always thinking, we're observing, we're taking in the world, we're affected by what's happening. I mean, now more than ever, I mean, I guess I should say now more than ever, but it just feels so much more urgent right now than it has in a long time, what's happening politically in this country and who it's going to affect. And I think that just sort of that haunts my writing life. And then I can, I think, the longer you live and the longer you start to see the outside, and then you start to see the public and how it comes into the personal, and it just becomes so you can't separate it, and it just finds its way to the page. But I don't really sit down and say, today I'm going to write about abortion, and then I'm going to talk about trying to think what else is. Oh, well, I also have black bears in this piece, so I find a way to get them in there together. But it just sort of it unfolds when you if you give the writing the time and the space. And I guess that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I think for me, it has to do with the way that my brain processes things in real time. And I think a lot about, in writing poetry, the experience of the body and the ways that but the body's experience is always layered, right? It's never just like I'm reacting to this factual piece of information that I read about the news. I'm like also reacting to my personal experience, like what I ate that day, what my childhood was like. All these things are simultaneous in our bodies. And for me, all those things are simultaneous also in the way I experience language. Um, I think partially because of my particular religious upbringing and the ways in which I was taught to continually, I was like forced to justify my own experience and feelings through a kind of like religious language. And it was never enough to simply say, like, I feel this way, but to have like contextual biblical proof, etc. So for me, it's really difficult for me to think about my experience in isolation of texts, of ideas, and also like political landscapes. It feels like a giant web at times, in which I tug at one thing and everything else kind of follows.
That metaphor is so apt, not only I think for your project, Hannah, but for the writers' project in general. I mean, it seems like both of you are, forgive me for getting ahead of myself here, presuming that both of you have books that are really imminent, and I'm wondering, at least I certainly hope so, and I'm looking forward to them, and to I hope both of you sending more work to Great River Review, and to seeing your work in other places too. I'm curious, before we have to sign off, what is something new that each of you is working on?
So those last few poems in my reading are a part of a kind of project I'm working on. I kind of succinctly call it my project about the intersection of queerness and capitalism. But I'm reading a lot of queer theory, like Foucault and Judith Butler, and as always, trying to figure out the ways in which certain positionalities and expressions of sexuality and gender are made possible through capitalism, and also inhibited by those structures.
That sounds like a really cool project, Hannah. I'm writing about a wolf, and it's taking me forever. writing about a guy that killed her. I think about it probably a lot more than I write about it. Just having a job and all that, it's hard to get it all out in a timely manner. But I spend a lot of time thinking about wildlife and the ways in which they are treated and bridled. It's sort of much like women's bodies. That's why there's, like, in that essay, that's why there's the black bear and deer, and then talking about legislation with female bodies, against female bodies. But yeah, I'm still working on this novel. It's real slow going. I enjoy it. I like exploring, checking out where this wolf went. And it's, I'm just all about getting into the desert and the dirt and her truck and the people that might, she was a real wolf, but everything else in the book is fiction. So, she was an endangered species that was killed in protected land by somebody who just wanted to, because he could, and he got away with it. And so that really pissed me off. And that is the book that I've been working on for a while now, but hopefully it'll be done. Hopefully by the end of the summer. We'll see.
So exciting, both of you. It's totally self-interest. I'm asking you about your work because I can't wait to read more of it. And I know that I speak for everyone at Great River Review, our editorial board, and the Walter Nathan Literary Initiative, which has really generously helped put this event together. And big thanks to Morgan Graham and Terry Sutton and Pete Mason and everyone who's worked on this. And to all the incredible student editors. There are 12 of them, so I'll mess up naming everyone, but their names will be written on the sky soon enough. They're very incredibly talented grad students working on the magazine right now. And those of you who are subscribers, we have quite a wonderful audience tonight, or vidians, or whatever it's called, viewers. If you're a subscriber, you'll be getting your issue soon. If you're not, please do subscribe, and keep your eyes out and ears open for Hannah Deerdorf and Rachel Hansen. What incredible readings. Thank you both. Please stay in touch. And thanks to everyone who attended tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you, Hannah.
It's an honor
Thank
to
you,
read with
Rachel.
you.
Thanks.